This is it, the new generation BMW M5. How powerful is it? What engine concept are they using? Everything you need to know about the all-new BMW M5 here with Thomas and Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's start with the new front grille, which has standard here this iconic glow, the illumination around. Yeah, that looks pretty cool, especially at night and so on. And here the air intakes are not adaptive because this one here, this engine, obviously needs more cooling. That's why it's open all the time. Also, it has a slightly wider track front and the rear if you compare it to the standard BMW 5 Series. And the wheel arches are even wider, so it has a very big stance on the road. Isle of Man green is this very vehicle color, but you can pick so many different individual colors for this one as well. Then the adaptive LED lamps, they are standard then, otherwise optional for normal 5 Series. And they also have this darkened side here, otherwise it would be blue. So a sinister dark look overall all across the vehicle. There is no bright chrome on the vehicle as well. So everything is either then in this dark chrome, so not the bright chrome, you know, like this like black style, or you can also optionally go for a carbon fiber pack. This is, for example, for the side mirrors or also for the roof. Here for the M5 sedan, you either get a panoramic roof that goes through, is a fixed panoramic roof, or then optional this carbon fiber roof. Of course, it is good for the weight distribution also because it keeps the weight in the lower part of the vehicle, and the top part then is a little bit lighter. Wheels in the front, 20-inch, really massive, option with sports tires. And another option is also here, the carbon ceramic brake. This is the most expensive option it gets. And wait a minute, there's like a fluke here in the front. What does that mean? Soon more to the engine concept coming up. Very interesting. So we had 20-inch wheels in the front, 21-inch wheels in the rear, so mixed wheels. This is for even more sportiness, and it also standard gets a rear axle steering up to 1.5 degrees parallel to the front wheels at higher speeds, or in the opposite direction than at lower speeds. And this is then to give you a little bit more agility at lower speeds and more stability at higher speeds. Why haven't they gone wider with the angle? Well, the reason is they wanted to keep a natural driving feeling. So the standard 5 Series has a wider angle degree to give you more flexibility in parking in and out. But here the more natural driving feel is more important to them. The length here, by the way, 5 meters and 10 or 201 inches, so also longer than the previous generation. Yes, and it will also be heavier, but it also comes with more interesting features like, before we get to the rear, here, look at that. Come closer here, stamped in M5 logo here at the side. This is also, you know, you can really feel that actually. So pretty nice, definitely. Then either you have here the black spoiler or then optional carbon fiber spoiler. It's also really, of course, larger than with the standard 5 Series. And this massive diffuser style in the lower part and real exhaust pipes. Of course, no job for the Autogefühl fake exhaust police here today. Then again, with this dark chrome around here. And yeah, this is no fake at all. Pretty interesting. The tail lamps here in this dual scheme. And of course, it always looks pretty cool when you hit the turning indicators, both in the rear and also in the front. Suspension technology comes with an adaptive suspension, so it also switches then in the driving modes. And what's also interesting is that it is standard all-wheel drive. However, you can also pick a two-wheel drive, so a rear-wheel drive only mode then in the setup if you want to spin it around a little bit further. Under the hood, they use a 4.4-liter V8 twin turbo. You can see it here, 1 and 2. You also have this nice engine covering. System output of this plug-in hybrid drivetrain is 727 horsepower. The pure ICE power is 585 horsepower. Why did they go for this drivetrain? Obviously, low emissions and so on. So to offer still like really high performing engines and also still an 8-cylinder, but at the same time coping with, you know, current and also future emission laws and so on. And well, it has downsides, but also some pro arguments. The downside is, of course, the weight, because you almost get it now to 2.5 tons. However, the vehicle also has become longer in this generation, but of course the battery technology does add some weight, yes. On the Pro side, with around 19 kilowatt hours net of the battery, you can also drive it all electric, for example, maybe commuting inside the city and so on, or maybe like silent start in the morning for your neighbors. So you can maybe calculate with some at least 60 kilometers, like 30, 40 miles of pure electric driving with this one. And in taxation terms, it might also be way cheaper. For example, in Germany, when I lease this vehicle here, then I don't pay taxes, like on like 1,500 euros per month, but on like 700 euros per month. So like with a very high income, for example, which is usually then the case when you drive this vehicle, you then also save maybe like around 200 to 400 euros per month, just by taxation when it's here a plug-in hybrid. Also very interesting aspect. Charging, by the way, is 7.4 kilowatt AC, and when you get one past November 2024, it will be 11 kilowatt AC. So this then mainly meant to charge it at home, for example, at the wall box and so on. Performance-wise, in the figure is 3.5 seconds in the acceleration to 1 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. That is slightly slower than the predecessor, where they still differentiated in M5 and M5 competition. Since most customers went for the M5 competition anyway, they thought, okay, let's always go for the top model, and then the M5 is always the M5. I think it's also a good decision. So slightly slower because of the increased weight from standstill. However, then when you are in this mid-speed regions, so for example, you are already at speed on the motorway, then here the hybrid system is actually quicker because you have the additional electric boost, for example. And the main reason also from the performance side is that this felt turbo lag is actually eliminated. At least that's what BMW says. And when we can soon drive this one, we're going to find out if it's true or not. Before we get to the interior, two more driving relevant things. First of all, there's a rear differential that you can also bring more power to the ground, also for accelerating out of the corners and so on. And top speed will be standard 250 kilometers an hour or 155 miles per hour, or option with the driver's package. You can top it up to around 305 kilometers an hour or around 190 miles per hour, if that's necessary on your personal closed autobahn or something like that. Then let's take a look at the interior. First of all, the car key with the M colors like this, then high gloss black. Flush integrate here these handles, but they really fold up still. Then door closing sounds, pretty nice. Has some kind of old school sound style as well, right? Also interesting here always how this glass is cut out right here, isn't it? There we go. This is the Hofmeister King design element, by the way, which goes back to one of their famous designers. Yeah, Leah is always showing in the image, but she will also present some features to you for sure. Then interior, inside of the doors, you already see this ambient lighting, which is pretty cool. Here and then in the blue scheme. Then the only thing that's missing, I feel, is here the felt covering on the inside. There is none, so it's all hardback. So when you have sunglasses in there, they will rattle around and so on. However, what's cool here, entry badges, and you have to notice that because the standard 5 Series does not have one. That's pretty interesting, isn't it? Then steering wheel is all new with a flat bottom, M colors on the inside, and then special here for the M5, you get these M1 and M2 buttons, and also larger shifting pedals behind the steering wheel. These buttons here, there you can individualize a mode, for example, set one mode to a somewhat sporty and like M2 to a super sporty mode. You can individualize that. Seats. You can see here special also for the M2, they have these shoulder accentuations, these sport seats, so very voluminous right here. And also in this lumbar area, they are already like really thick, I would say so. So when you say, and the illuminated badge, of course. This is pretty cool, right? So especially when it's a little bit darker, this always brings some more emotion. When you open the door, they automatically illuminate. This is also not standard. And so the thing is, when you sit down, you feel like the lumbar support is already set in, but it's not. You can even top that up and set it even more. So for everyone who likes to have a very strong lumbar support, it's good. For others who don't like strong lumbar support, you have to take a test seat in this one here. Unfortunately, so far only animal skin surfaces, although BMW does have the alternative materials, which are superb and also leading in the industry. And also these alternative materials are sportier. They are lighter and they are also better performing as for the climate features and so on. So it's sad that they did not offer them right here. They have to work, but they do work on that at the moment also to be actually better in the performance and more in the lightweight at the moment, but it's coming too late. Then here, the steering wheel up and down, in and out, electric way. And you see this demo mode here also in the instruments at the moment. You get different visualizations depending on which mode you're on. And then you have here, for example, the RPM, left side the speed, very well visible. You have this curved display. This is then now for the 5 Series. That's actually 2 single screens then next to each other. Headroom, by the way, here, so fixed roof. Yeah, no problem at all. 1 meters 89 or 6'2" is my height. At least when I checked last time. You also have this side paddle light. It's also pretty cool to see, and more light features here. I really love the blue, but also then here the M colors in the middle part. That's actually pretty fancy, isn't it? The only thing I don't like with the 5 Series with the ambient light, in contrast to the 7 Series, the 7 Series, there the light bar goes all the way through, like here. But here they have this design split, so I think it's not ideal, I would say. And then you have special features also for the M here. First of all, the start-stop button is in red. And then you also have these special M settings right here. Hybrid relevant here, M hybrid mode. Then you see here you can switch to a pure electric driving mode. Top speed there is, by the way, 140 kilometers an hour pure electric. Or you can go to a dynamic or dynamic plus. So that gives you then more driving focus from the hybrid drivetrain. At some point, of course, the battery will be depleted. That's always the thing. However, there's always a buffer that you have, still like a hybrid power left. So when you accelerate, however, then of course the fuel consumption will go higher because the battery needs to be powered by the combustion engine. Then the M mode, this is below that. This is here for all the driver's assistance systems. If you are driving on the road, sportier, or on the track, so this will draw back the assistance systems, for example. And then even more important is the setup button, the last one here. Well, there's also here for the deactivating ESC, but in the setup button you can do everything at the same time. And here you can individualize your driving experience then, the M5 drivetrain, chassis, how sporty it is, steering, brake, and so on. And then you can also configure what do you want to have on M1 and what do you want to have on M2. And yeah, usually I think it makes sense to maybe like drive normal for like civilized driving, have one mode maybe for something in between, and then one mode maybe where it's like, hey, I want everything off. And here you can also pick then the two-wheel drive mode, that you can go rear drive only. You can also deactivate the ESC completely and so on. And the rest of the infotainment system, you have these special M visualizations. You also have here the color displayed in the screen, so that's actually pretty nice. Yeah, and the climate unit is always here in the lower part, so I like to have manual control over that. Yeah, but that's something here obviously you have to get used to. Seat cooling, seat heating is also here, heated steering wheel. It just takes more attention while driving to do that then. And here this is your driver POV when you have these instruments then here. Oh, now it gets really loud from the AC unit. Thank you, Leah. Very low. Yeah. Out is better, yeah. This is in the POV here with the steering wheel and also then the instruments. Do you like that? And you also get a head-up display, yeah, to show you that there are other people working around here in the studio. Cup holders are adaptive and also illuminated. That's pretty cool. And in the front, also nice illumination. But when we turn on some light now, thank you, Leah, then you can see the left part is an inductive charging field, which also has cooling. Now Leah is showing us this split opening for the middle armrest. There we go. Then you have some space underneath. Some light. And, yeah, some light in there. Yeah. There we go. And then we also have, there is also another option, this Alcantara ceiling. Rear seats, we also have soft touch here on the top part. However, then the door pocket here is once again hardpack. Bowers & Wilkins sound system, by the way, is also standard for the M5. Yeah, we soon have to talk about the prices as well. And then rear seating comfort. So it's a long vehicle, but you don't have too much legroom left. So the packaging is always because, yeah, it is still fitting a V8. That's the thing. And also these sport seats are even more voluminous, so you lose a little bit more of legroom. But still, it fits for tall adults. Also here, headroom wise. Interesting is here this rear climate unit. You have a separate one, all wire touch, but it looks actually quite cool, although you know that I'm not the biggest touch fan overall. And then here, well, it depends on what you touch, of course. Back to the vehicle. Then here the middle armrest for the rear passengers, adaptive cup holders, that's nice. And you can also use this one here as the separate ski hatch. Well, and if you have performance car loving children, then you also can use the ISOFIX here, and it also stays in place, it doesn't fly around, so you can fold up and down again. ISOFIX on the outsides each. Well, in the middle seat here, yeah, is okay. I mean, you can drive with 5 tall adults, but probably the middle seat is not like that supportive, so when you drive sporty, you have to pay attention. The Force is with me today. Tell me, what do you think about the all-new Ecolight series? I think there was light and shadow, like it is always with the Force, isn't it? And well, today I have this bright lightsaber to show you more details of the trunk from the inside. And when I touch here now, then my hand is actually gone, right? So this is like a one-sided lightsaber, so I have to touch it here, then my hand is not burned. So let's open the trunk for you. And we have 470 liters. There we go, so we have some light for you. So that's it. Since it's a plug-in hybrid drivetrain, we do lose some liters in the trunk, and also, you know, the additional tech they have here in there. So you see then here between the wheel arches, we only have about like 80 centimeters of width. So that's yeah, like 31 inches in the lower part. Then it's of course a little bit wider here. 470 liters is the liter figure here. Would be 490 for the electric version of the 5 Series and 520 for the pure combustion engine without plug-in hybrid. And here 115 in meters. So the height here is 55 centimeters. That's like 20 inches, about that. You can also fold the seats, right and left, but then you have to push through. And in this case, we can use the lightsaber to push it through like this. Hey, I really always need this now. There we go. And if you still wonder about the hybrid drivetrain and about is the power available at all times, so BMW has told me on their test, they also test this vehicle here on the Nürburgring Nordschleife, they could not get into a state where the battery is so empty where they didn't have the maximum power yet, so or power anymore. So that's what they have done in the testing, and the reason for that is that you can always use the recuperation up to 60 kilowatt. And so even if you drive in a very performant way, then you go off the throttle, there's the next corner and so on, and then the battery is gaining some energy back. Then you can use the full power again and so on. And by that, they say at least, you don't have any power losses, although at some point maybe the battery is not full or so on. But yet again, when we drive this vehicle, we can also find more about that. Then pricing-wise, we have the German prices already, and they are of course more or less representative, at least for the European market. US price in dollars will always be a little bit lower. So here the starts at about 144,000 euros. Most of the equipment is already included. Extras you see here at this vehicle would be, for example, this Alcantara seating, carbon fiber roof, carbon fiber package, and also the carbon ceramic brakes. And then when you put everything in there, you can get some like 165,000 euros and so on. But hey, taxation is way cheaper than before due to the hybrid drive system here. So this is definitely a thing to consider. Do you like this concept? Do you like the new generation of the M5 overall? Tell me in the comments. And yeah, recently we, for example, shown you the AMG version of the Mercedes A-Class. A-Class of the Mercedes E-Class, I meant. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's always about the different namings, but at least here we don't differentiate between M5 and M5 competition anymore. So this is now the M5, period. But the Touring will be coming up soon.